Frank said once again, to quote Barney again, you can't run for office on the platform of it could have been worse. But it's not a theoretical, it's not a hypothetical thing. I mean, it's just hard. People didn't have any memory of this, but again, in the Great Depression, which at the outset saw a financial shock 1/5 as severe as we saw at the beginning of this crisis, had 25% unemployment, economy shrank by 25%, and it was pretty much like a decade of shanty towns and breadlines. If you don't like that example, you can look at the 5 financial crises the U.S. had in the 50 years before that. Pretty similar bad outcomes. Or if you don't like that example, you can look at the emerging market crises of the 90s. It wasn't a hypothetical, theoretical thing that it could have been worse, even in this terrible recession we had. And remember, again, think about we're sitting there watching the thing collapse around us around the world, and already by many dimensions, it's much, much worse in magnitude than at the beginning of the Great Depression. And we did a set of things which, on their face, were going to look deeply unfair, except relative to the alternative. You'd say that why was it fair or necessary to keep the lights on the financial system or look like you're rewarding the arsonists? But it was only more fair than leaving the economy to deal with the consequences of a broader collapse. No chance, I still don't believe, no chance to make that accessible or understandable to people. Again, because no living memory of what panics are like, no living memory in the United States of what panics cause. And the things we're doing to put out the fire, again, have this deeply counterintuitive, offensive character because they have so many collateral beneficiaries, unintended, undesirable collateral beneficiaries. I think impossible to really think. But it's not like we were living with we were trying to prevent the hypothetical, highly unlikely, speculative, implausible bad outcome. We were trying to prevent the almost certain outcome of vastly greater devastation by order of magnitude than even the terrible damage left. And again, just to go to just to make it harder in some ways, remember, most people, I think, even in the fall of '08, maybe even today, still think that the error their government made was to be too generous with the rescue, which may be in some ways, but let's go back again to what it was like in the fall of '08 or early '09. All of that damage to the American economy, much of which we're still living today, was the cause of the fact that the fire was allowed to burn in some ways too hot. It got away from us, partly because we didn't have the authority to contain it until we went to Congress, but partly because we were working against this overwhelming instinct still of politicians and policymakers in many places that, no, this is good. Let it burn. It'll be just in its impact. So all that damage we went through, all that damage we're still left with, all those scars are still mostly a result of the fact that it took until October of '08 and then January of '09 for this country, strongest country financially on the planet, to decide to escalate massively and figured out the mix of things that were going to be required to prevent unemployment again from going to 25%.